about the board game industry. Some of us are really tired because it's really early for them. I had
Sorry
to
about
just
that.
no, you're cool, man. Yawn away. Um, I have hopefully my friend logs in and checks. I had issues with audio last week, and I asked her to just double check to make sure all our audios are working. I did last week's episode for about 35 minutes before somebody chimed in and said they can't hear me, but they could hear
Oh
all my
no.
guests. Yeah, it was nobody will ever see it because I deleted the episode and we started over. So today I have Julia Ahern, uh, Lindsay. I can't remember Rhode. I'm
It is
sorry.
Rhode. Good job.
Okay, whew, good, got that
Did
one.
it.
And
You
Bebo.
dodged that bullet.
All these ladies work in the board game industry. I love them. I get along with them really well. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves one at a time? Talk about yourselves a little bit. Start with Julie.
Sure.
Hi. I am the vice president of Greenbrier Games and one of the co-founders, and we do mostly narrative-driven horror games, and then we have another line that I like to call the cute but stabby line that are a lot of versus type games but cuter themes, and I do a bunch of other stuff, but that's pretty much what I'm doing.
Bebo.
Hi, I'm Bebo, and I am the founder of Bebold Games, and I do the marketing for several different companies currently. And yeah, I make YouTube videos, and I tweet a lot about social issues because I grew up next to Evergreen State College, and I'm sorry, but I went to a hippie elementary school and learned about social justice in first grade, so it's just been all uphill from there.
Nice. And Lindsay.
I'm Lindsay Rhode. I am the co-founder of Rose Gauntlet Entertainment, which is a new board game publishing company, and I'm also a game designer that has Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's really fresh. If you're watching this, depending on the date, it just happened.
I mean, you've got a hoodie. You already got the hoodie made.
Yep, we got the hoodie. This is my work pajamas, is what I call these. But yeah, other than that, I'm a game designer, and I have a few games out there.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for being on the show. I was thinking initially we could do like just a easygoing. Let's talk about our favorite games. But then I thought it'd be kind of nice to talk a little bit about the industry itself, because I myself personally didn't realize how big the board game industry was until I would say around 2016. I think was my first Gen Con, and I was working another booth there. I didn't even have my art at that time full on display, and I was like totally like immediately in love with everything, like because I play board games, but I don't have a lot of friends who now it's becoming more of a thing. Like I have friends now who are very much into gaming and stuff, but at that time it was like a hard sell to try to get people to board game with you. So I guess like if you guys want to maybe talk about how you guys started in the industry and to get to where you are, might be kind of interesting for people to hear, because there's so many different, like it's not just the game, right? There's, as an artist, there's like a whole different world of for us, and then when we combine those two together, it's like kind of mind-boggling for us, right? So and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a very cool, like I've worked with Julie on stuff, I've tried to work with Lindsay on stuff. Maybe it'll happen someday. And I've worked with a couple different board game houses in the industry, and it's like they're always different. They're never wow, Mike just jumped in here with 37 people. Thanks, Mike. So like whoever wants to start first, I'm just curious to know your stories. And like, I know how I met Julie, because I remember I was working a booth at an art show, and an artist friend of hers was like, my friend works in the board game industry, and I was just like, okay. Like,
Sure. And then we just started talking, and then
yeah.
I stopped paying attention because I was helping out. And then we just started hanging out, and that was probably not helpful of me, but yes. I guess I'll start.
Yeah, go ahead.
Anybody else has a burning desire?
Do it.
Okay. I started designing. I mean, I've always designed board games ever since I was a kid, or redesigned old board games, messed with stuff. I was a teacher for 12 years, so I was designing kids' games for the classroom, and had I actually got hired because I had written a dissertation for my master's in education about how to incorporate board games into the classroom to promote a better, reach a better, kids with different levels of skill sets, different levels of ability, different interests. And they were like, cool, you're hired and we're going to put that to the test because now you have to do it and we need to see improvement in test scores. And I was like, what? Okay. So that's how I started there. And by the time I met that was in Virginia and I moved to Massachusetts and I didn't know anybody and I met people through playing board games and we had like a regular thing going. And Jeff started designing a game and asked for feedback and I gave it and it was brutal and mean. And he said, thank you, can you have some more feedback? And so that that was part of the beginning of Greenbrier Games in a really quick synopsis because Jeff is the president of the company and we had a couple other people working on it. But so I transitioned over from education to helping design for entertainment. And over the years, we got more profitable, so I quit teaching and I'm doing it full time. So that's like the short story of how everything happened. And that was we became a full company in 2011. So we're at our decade of being Greenbrier Games.
That's awesome. Yeah, I still have yet to actually sit down and play Folklore. I definitely have it. In my group, I have to always convince people to play games that I bring home after shows because I get a bunch of them. Like a lot of industry people will be like, "Do you want to trade?"
And that is a bit of an investment. Because it's supposed to emulate an RPG game. So if you're sitting down to play, you're in for an hour and a half minimum, and that is a hard sell for somebody who is like,
I can barely get these guys to play D&D.
Cat Lady this morning because that's what I had the bandwidth for. Nice. I get it.
Julie is representing Greenbrier. I'm just reading off questions. Sorry. Whichever one of you guys wants to go next, Bebo or Lindsay.
Sure. So I've been playing board games for a long time. I can't really say that I grew up designing them or anything. But I've been playing Magic the Gathering for 23 years, which is a long and fraught relationship of ups and downs. But I've been playing board games for a long time, and I was working at a food truck for Whole Foods. I ran a food truck for them. I was listening to a lot of board game podcasts, and I was getting really into the indie scene. And then I played a game called The Dead of Winter, and it just blew my mind. And I was like, this is incredible. I've never seen anything like this. I can lie to my friends, and it's really fun. So I signed up for a con. I remember I had a group of friends going. They all opted out the last minute, and I was like, screw this, I'm gonna go anyway. I messaged Isaac or Plaid Hat, and I was like, I don't have anything to do. Can I just work for you guys? And that was the year that they released, I think, Dead of Winter widely was distributed, or it got some sort of accolades or something. It was crazy. That booth was crazy that day, and it was just awesome. I just remember thinking everyone at this con is a rock star. I've never seen a community like this. I want to be part of this. I want to be a rock star with all these really cool people too. And then that night I had a hotel room really far away from Gen Con because I didn't know what I was doing. And I got there, I went to a CVS, I bought a notebook, and I started designing games that night, that first night of the con. And they've been doing it ever since. And I think it's been about 7 years since that moment. But I just got to announce my first publishing company with Isaac Vega, the creator of the game that got me into the industry.
Awesome.
And it's just fun. I met Julie at a bar, I think. I know we knew each other before that, but
middle of nowhere Comic-Con, again, not related to board games, and we were the only two board game people there, and so we
we just looked over and we had a drink together, and I think we've been really good friends ever since. It's the kind of industry that I always wanted the food industry to be, which is an industry where a bunch of creative people get together and they just do amazing stuff and they play games, and I never want to go back. This is such a great career to be in.
Absolutely. I remember when I first met Lindsay was in at one of the hotel parties rooms at Gen Con. You were teaching us it was a game with cards and fishing. I don't remember what it was called.
Yeah, happy fish, I think, or happy salmon.
And it was a little too. I was a little too lit to play it, but everyone was trying to get me to play it. I'm like, all right, let's go. You know, it was a good time. You know, I got to meet a bunch of people in that room that I'm really good friends with now. You know, so. But yeah, Bebo, let's hear about you a little bit.
Yeah. So, gosh. I started playing board games when I was 4 years old when my grandma got me the Care Bear Carolog game.
That was a good game.
Then she taught me cribbage and I was hooked. Over the years, none of my siblings would play board games with me, so I'd play them by myself and play multiple characters, and it was awesome until I met my best friend Joe when I was in the 6th grade. Maybe it was 5th grade. It was 5th grade, I think. I transferred at the end of 5th grade year. We had the same class in 6th grade, and Joe started designing board games with me almost immediately. And then I started to go to school to be a teacher. And I realized after one day in the classroom that I really didn't want to teach people who didn't want to learn. So I dropped the class, was like, kids are just not for me. Like, I just can't do kids. I dropped the class and find out I'm pregnant. And now I've been teaching a kid that doesn't want to learn from me for 11 years. But it was pretty funny. And then right after I had her, we started cosplaying when she was like 6 months old. She was dressed up as like, or maybe she was 12 months old. She was dressed up as Oddish. I was dressed up as Blossom. We were going to a Pokemon convention. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. This is so much fun. And so I started going to more and I started meeting people. And then Cryptozoic met me and they were like, hey, we want you to work for us. And I was really, really dedicated to the World of Warcraft trading card game, which is how I ended up meeting them. And so I started demoing games for them, like when my daughter was like 1. So it was 2011-ish. And yeah, that was that. I started volunteering for them. And then I would say like a couple years later, I got a call and they said, hey, there's this distribution company in your area that's hiring a marketing person. Would you be interested? And I had my job interview at Mox boarding house when it was Card Kingdom. And it was funny because I was an insurance agent at the time, teaching people who did want to learn about their insurance policies and doing a lot of B2B and B2C marketing. So I came with the experience I needed to work in distribution, but from a different industry. And it was all such a whirlwind, and I haven't left since.
That's cool, man. I think it's cool how like all of us came from like different backgrounds and then decided to just jump right into this one because we really liked it. We loved it that much, right? Like, first off, I just want to apologize to Mike. I misunderstood what he was asking. I thought he was just going to raid. I didn't realize he wanted to be a guest on the show with us. So my bad on not adding you on the call. I definitely have Mike on later. He's doing a 80s cartoons chat with me at some point. Let me just get that out of the way. I feel really bad about it. So please don't hate me, any of the guests he brought over. So, but yeah, I mean, like, you know, my first like board game I think was like like, you know, checkers or whatever, right, with my uncles. But I remember my cousins used to love playing like Life and Monopoly and all those, what is it, Milton Bradley games, right? So my first inclination of board games is always going to be these, like, the coolest game I ever played at that point when I was younger was Hero Quest, which I still have. I didn't get the Hasbro re-release. I wish I had, because it just looked like a rebranding. But now one of my friends got it. I'm like, that looks so cool. I wish I picked it up. I'm hoping when shows come back at some point somebody has it and I can do an art trade for it or something. But that game was like the first time I was like, okay, board games can be different. They don't always have to be not as fun. Like Monopoly is whatever. I hate Monopoly. I'm sorry to anyone who loves Monopoly. Kudos to you. It made me stress out dealing with money, you know, like, and then Life was the same. Life was like, now I got to raise a family and worry about money. Like, I'm still a kid, you know, like,
I mean, I hated it growing up because my dad always won and like rubbed it in, which was a valuable life lesson, I suppose.
I was
But I played
7
it.
when I realized I was smarter than my parents, and so it was all just like doom and gloom for them when it came to board games. They were so annoyed.
Totally fair. But yeah, I played it last year. So Dice Tower West was one of the last conventions.
Yeah.
And set up at the front of the entire convention center, like as people were walking into the gaming hall, like midnight and until 2 a.m, played Monopoly. I think really just so that to see the look of horror on everybody's face as they were walking by, but had a great time. So you know,
sarcastically playing Monopoly at a con convention opening, like,
at a Dice Tower con convention.
That's a good way to like mess with
gamers,
people's
they were
heads.
just mortified. It was great.
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say one time I totally brought my Game Boy Color with me with Monopoly in it just to tick people off, just to be like,
I mean,
is hilarious.
I don't like, it was just one of those games that I guess because I played with my cousins a lot and they were much older than me, so they knew how to like not buy all the real estate right away and do the specific things. Every time you landed on it, you'd have to pay them money, and at some point I'd be out of money and I'd be like, great, I'm out. And that's how most games went for me until like I said, Hero Quest came out, and I remember like Fireball Island, and that's when I kind of started seeing like a slight difference in the industry. I'm like, oh crap, someone's actually thinking and saying, let's make these more fun for everybody. But I didn't realize the level it was at till like I said, till I got to Gen Con, and that was like my first time seeing stuff like one of my favorite games is King of Tokyo. Like my friends are half in and half out on that because every time they're like, what game do you want to play? I'm like, King of Tokyo, because it's my favorite, but I didn't realize games like that existed until I was at that show. And then, walking around seeing all the different brands, I was like, this is a big industry and it'd be fun to be part of it, right? And I wasn't even thinking on the level of let's make a game. I was thinking just, can I get my artwork on the cover or something, right? I'm hearing a second voice. Give me 1 second. Got it. That'd be me. My bad. I always have audio issues, guys. Welcome to my show. But now I'm like thinking on a level of like, for my own series, I would love to make a game. I've talked to Julie about this already, and I will get my stuff in order before I present it to you. But I would love to make.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I know you're gonna lecture me if I don't.
For somebody who's constantly hearing, I have this idea, you should make that into a board game. I appreciate that you want to get your act together before you talk.
Dude, the mathematics I'm finding is the hard. Like, you got the idea, right? So like, let's break down like a general idea of designing a game, and if I'm wrong, please correct me. But like, my take on it has always been kind of, you have the idea, you piece together what you want the game to do, you figure out who you're gearing it towards, like who your audience is. Like, is it going to be younger, young adults or adults, and then figure out both sides of the game. That's the way I've been trying to make it I kind of like try to make it based on games I like. And I was telling Julie about this a little bit. I like that idea of King of Tokyo, but I also really love the aspects of betrayal. Like, I like the fact that the world is different every time you play it. I like the fact that you have a book of, I think, like 52 different scenarios that could happen. So it's always random to a degree. But then the mathematics of it is where I'm like, you don't want to make it so overpowered that one character just running around trouncing the other characters, right?
Lindsay should definitely speak to all of this.
Yeah.
About designing?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be like in the utmost details, but like a basic idea of design is something I think that's people who want to make board games fail at all the time.
Well, it's not so much fail as you just find like all the ways that it doesn't work.
Sure.
So, like, in my experience, and it's something I've actually kind of been struggling with because I have imposter syndrome, really bad.
We all have that.
I'm sure. Yeah, I have heard it's not unusual. It's my first time really having it this bad. But game design, I think it's just the first time I just really cared that much. But one of the things that I found with my game design is that every single game I've made, even the ones I'm working on now, they all have a completely different approach. Like, I wouldn't say any particular game I made had one. Like, originally I tried to do it off of the emotions I wanted the players to feel. Then I kind of morphed into just focusing on like the kind of story and mechanic balance that I wanted to do. And now it's a little bit more holistic. Now it's looking at the games and saying like you said, like King of Tokyo, like what does it do right? What does it do wrong? what do I feel like the industry is really missing? That's a big thing for Rose Gauntlet right now is like, where are the gaps in the industry happening? Where can we really like innovate some new ideas or maybe combine things that haven't been seen before? But, and I don't know if this is really an answer, but I wouldn't stress out, especially when you're designing, because your system is changing or evolving or different. Because so far, every game I've made has had a completely different creative process. And that is completely normal as far as I can tell.
No, that's good advice, because like I feel like I have more fun. If you don't stress out, obviously you're gonna have more fun. But it's also like when you play test is where you figure out, okay, that didn't work, and here's why that didn't work. So what's the next? Because I've been to like the what's that room called at Origin, the Unpub room at Origins, and it's always cool to like sit down and test a game, and you're playing a game knowing that it's probably not going to go the way you want it to go. Like it's maybe going to frustrate you because you're like, this isn't working, and something's broken here. But that's what they want you to do, right? They want you to sit there. They don't want you to be a complete asshole about it, but they want you to at least write down notes and figure it out. Like I had a friend who wanted to make a game, but every play test I was putting him in with my other friends, he refused to listen.
So I guess that's the thing. You're going from initial concept of design to playtesting, and for me, initial playtest design is you're going in. You're it's a mental pathway of whether you're going for the feels, whether you kind of have an idea it's going to be kind of like this game, but I'm going to tweak it and make it my own. Whatever your approach is, that's all internal. When you go to playtest, you should have a plan in mind and communicate that plan to your playtesters. I want you to break it as many different ways as possible.
Yeah.
Okay, we're past the breaking it as many different ways as possible. So I'm not looking for you to break it. Of course, if you do, that's going to be really important because I think I fixed all that. I'm looking for you to make sure that everything's balanced. Or I'm looking to see how you emotionally react because I'm looking for these feels. And if I'm getting different ones, I don't know if that's what I was going for. Like, you should have that plan in mind so that you're focusing on that and kind of ignoring all the other stuff that they might give you because it might not.
Oh, yeah.
Not that their experience is invalid. Just you're looking to fix one thing because if you just go open ended and go give me everything,
it's gonna be a lot.
Then are reacting to everything, and that might not be helpful.
And you definitely want to get the game to like a very specific point before you start bringing in outside play tests. So you want to do some internal play testing. You want to like just try it on yourself. Make sure like most of the big holes are filled at that point. But yeah, Julie's right. Like when you go into external play testing, especially like in an Unpub, you should feel confident that like you're ready to kind of go into that more mass thing.
I got you.
Gonna find everything.
Yeah. I've been in that room, man. I'm just like, and as a player, I'm like, this is kind of cool. But as the person who made the game, I'm like, this has got to be scary.
As the person who's like, here's a little piece of my soul, crush it, please.
It is. It feels
intense.
There's going to be moments in that where it feels like they're going to be like, this is broken. What are you going to do? And you don't know what you're going to do. You feel like maybe this game is ruined because you had no idea it was going to break this badly. It's like unplayable because of what they found. And you don't have an answer for them. And that's okay. It's important not to like panic in that moment and to say like, thank you. I really appreciate it. And like, you will figure it out. You'll figure out how to solve the problem. You'll be okay. But there is, especially early on, like that panic moment where you're like, I have no idea what to do. I had no idea this was going to happen. I feel like this is a disaster. And just like kind of like learning to deal with some of those. I'm sure Julie and Bebo, if you've designed, I'm sure you've gotten that too, where you're just like, I'm going to like just pack this up now and go home and think about how to fix all these things.
Bebo, I don't know anything about design on your end. I've always worked with you in the how to play capacity, but what have you made? Because now I'm
Yeah, totally. So I started designing games with my best friend Joe because of Monopoly, because we were like, this game is like
I'm sitting here trashing it.
Yeah, we were like, this game is objectively not good. But you know what game was really good was Triopoly, which was like a 3-level Monopoly. And it took like 18 hours to play.
Oh my God.
But
no.
Joe was a good friend who loved me very much. But we decided to design our own game called Gnomes, which was essentially a card drafting game that was like The Sims. You were like drafting a house and people and making different set collections. And keep in mind, this was before I knew what a set collection was, and I was 12 years old.
I'm not 100% sure what a set collection is. If somebody wants to explain that real quick.
Julie, this is all you.
Collection is, so, in basic playing cards, sets are like your suits or what a straight or a flush in poker. That's a set collection. In a game, so Cat Lady that I was playing earlier, you have a grid of 3x3, so 9 cards out, and you can take either a row or a column. And then some of them are cats that you're trying to feed, and then some of them are like there are toys, there's catnip, there's costumes, and each one has its, in that game is a little more sophisticated. So whoever's the most costumes gets points. Whoever has a different number of toys, if you have one toy, it's 3 points. If you have 2 different toys, it's 5, and it goes that way. So the more you have of different increases the set in a different way. Catnip, if you have 1, you have a -2, but if you have up to 4, it's 2 times the points of every cat that you have kept and fed. So each one of those is a set, and they're scored differently in that game. So you can have a basic poker kind of set, or you can have a more sophisticated kind of set collection in something like Cat Lady.
Got it. All right, Bebo, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Totally fine. It's all good. I was listening.
So please continue your story. I still want to hear more about it.
Yeah, so we were designing games together, and it was always just like a side passion project, but like we came up with some really cool games, and they're somewhere in my best friend's attic. And it was great. I mean, like, I had a ton of fun, and then, of course, I started working in the board game industry with GTS distribution, and that was really fun. I did that for 5 years, and then I went out on my own, and honestly, I had been designing games when I worked for GTS, and one of the first game designs that I presented to people, I immediately had 2 publishers offer to sign it. I was not comfortable with either publisher signing it. I didn't really feel like they shared my core values as a person, so I wasn't ready to give up my baby. So I took my baby to Eric Wang, who is a good friend of mine, and I was like, Eric, we play this game. And he crushed my soul.
Oh,
so
no.
It's okay. It was a good thing. Eric basically played my game, and he goes, you have a great game, but I have to ask what your main objective is. And I was like, well, my main goal is just to get my name on a box, because I don't see other people's names like mine on boxes. And he was like, okay, that's cool. You can sign this with a small publisher and get your name on the box. But if you cut out like half of the complexity, this could be a mass market game. You won't get your name on the box, and then you could make money, which would allow you to make more games. And I was like, well, I don't like either of those options, so I'm just going to keep this game in my house forever and never show it to anybody again. Because I'm
a choice.
So stubborn, and I don't want to give up my babies. So that's all there is to it. Like, I loved my game. It was a lot of fun. I don't need to design that game. I'm ready to move past that and work on some other cool stuff.
So wait, that game never got made?
No, I never published it. I didn't ever like put any effort into trying to publish it again.
That was exactly, that's amazing. That entire exchange is amazing, because so few designers have the self the self-possession, and like he gave you the right information of those are often the options that you have. And a designer, especially a first-time designer, or a first-time putting something out there to be judged design, will feel the pressure to go one way or the other just so that they can have their name on the box. And you decided that was not what you wanted to do. And I think that's fantastic, because that's hard.
I also understood that, like, as a public figure, I am more vulnerable to people in general. And so because I'm well known, I knew that if I was putting out a design for the first time, that it was going to be like highly susceptible to criticism because I am a woman who is a public figure and a person of color. I knew that, and I decided that if I was going to publish a thing, I didn't want it to be a board game, because I didn't want to be on Board Game Geek, a community that I'm supposed to love, and like feel a sense of contentment toward them. And so instead, I wrote a book.
That's great.
And published that because it's less vulnerable, and like more subjective and also just informational. And so I was like, this is not me being vulnerable to the general population. This is not me sharing my heart. This is me providing education resources, which is something I'm comfortable and familiar with.
That's awesome.
And that
man.
was a lot easier for me. I can let that go.
That's not an easy thing for a lot of people to let move. Like, just say, that's cool. I'm going to go do my own thing over here, right? I think a lot of people would immediately be like, I want to mass market this thing and make a bunch of money. I'll admit that would be my first thought if I had designed a game when I was first starting out. You know, I'd be like, because I took on some jobs where I'm just like, I just want to be part of this project. So I'm going to take the job. And then as I'm working on the illustrations for it, I'm like, I am super not happy with what I'm doing right now. I kind of wish I thought this thing through. You know, not all companies are fun to work with. Some of them are actually not cool. I'm going to use the word not cool because that's a nicer way of saying how I really feel. But, you know, and sometimes it takes that extra little lesson before you're like, you know, I worked with a specific company for a couple months before I was like, I don't like the way you're treating me. You're actually not paying me enough. And you're actually now talking down to me as if I'm like lesser than you. I'm like, I don't have to put up with this, you know, like I can go somewhere else where my work is valued. So, but then now,
a lot of first-time designers from the publisher's perspective is, if it's your first game, not only are you feeling the pressure to make it happen, but you're also have a hard time letting it go. And that is something that if you're selling it to a publisher is going to happen, because you're thinking about it as your creative whole, and they're thinking about it as, what am I doing to make this profitable? And it's a very hard thing to let, especially your first game, just let it go. And so I find a lot of designers that I've seen their first game are an early design, and I think they're cool and I think they're going to be great to work with. But I get a lot of, well, let me tweak this. Well, let me tweak this. Well, let me tweak this. And it's a year and a half, and I'm like, our contract is up.
Right.
And I've never gotten to finish because you wanted to handle it, and I want to respect, you want to be a part of your vision, but then it never gets me. And, you know, and occasionally I'm willing to do that hand holding, but not all the time, because I also have to publish games.
Well, you got your own job to do,
That's
right?
just it, is that I knew that I wanted to be in creative control of my vision, including doing the art and the graphic design and all of those things, because I'm perfectly capable of it. And so if I'm not ready to let go of my baby, that's okay. If I don't publish a game until I'm 40, I'm cool with that. Like, I've got other cool stuff I can be working on.
Yeah, and it happens all the time. Like my first two designs, the one, I think the company still hasn't put it out. And then the other one, they stripped my credit and gave me a special thanks.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? Like my first two, and like after that I was like, you know what? I am just gonna like not gonna sign these things anymore. Like I'm gonna like work on myself or only work with people I trust. But like that happens. Like this is an industry that has money, and it happens to designers. It happened to me.
I mean, I've learned that you can
it was
ask.
a tough lesson to learn. You know.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, no, it's a tough lesson. Like I didn't have bounce backs on my contracts. I didn't know how to negotiate my contracts at that point. And like they were my first couple of designs. I feel like I've gotten a little bit better since then, but like there's still like things I worked really hard on, and one might be dead forever, you know.
I mean, all my contracts now have kill fees in them because I learned that from another friend in the industry who does artwork for he does artwork for book covers and board games and stuff, and he was like, what's your kill fee? I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And he's like, if they cancel the project, what's the kill fee? What do you still get paid? And I'm just like, nothing? You know, like, it sounds like nothing. And he's like, exactly. So you need a kill fee in there. So that's one of those things or if they pay up front, right? So that they pay up front, half up front or whatever, that's the kill fee, right? You keep that money. You're like, well, you're canceling the project.
I pay I pay for the piece, whether I use it or not. Whether the project goes on, my contracts always are, you know, some combination of either half up front, the rest at the end,
right?
Or like that's depending on if it's a long one, every so many pieces. But Bye, Lindsay.
Lindsay did say she was having trouble with Discord. She'll be back.
Okay.
There she is.
Sorry. I told you I had that thing.
No, you warned us. All that's going to happen is as you keep...
I've never heard of you cancel the project, you just don't get paid. I didn't know that existed.
So
hey, when I start talking about contracts, because I have a whole list.
So it's usually like them losing funding. And then they're basically like, we can't pay you now because we don't have the funding, which that's the point of like either most companies you work with
new
or I work with.
Kickstarters, I can say like a new Kickstarter.
Sure.
If you're an established company.
Right.
Like
if you're running a Kickstarter
for my Kickstarter before the Kickstarter starts, that stuff's paid for before we begin.
Right. That's exactly. And that's the way to do it, right? Because like if you're going to hire an artist who, for example, does the cover for you, they're going to expect to get paid X, whatever their value is for the cover, right?
But I see, like, so, you know, that's the whole argument about, like, Kickstarter being for just new people who are just starting in the industry and being a Kickstarter versus established companies continue to use it, the pros and cons of that. So you can go back and forth on that, or, like, that is a constant conversation as well. And that's hard because that would be one of the cons. If you're a new person who's kickstarting a game and you are genuinely like, nothing gets made if this Kickstarter doesn't fund.
Right.
You have to be upfront with your artists about that too, so that they can make an informed decision to say yes or no.
Right. No,
not
totally
just
agree.
Slide it into the contract and
you got to be like you don't get paid unless we get paid.
Right.
Yeah. So
and
Mike,
I would argue like if you're very serious about putting this project out, you believe that this project is going to do well, and you believe in it. Like it's on you to come up with the initial investment money to make sure they do get paid. And I still kind of don't think that's their problem. If you believe in it. Get the basics done. You don't have to get all of it done, but
just get enough to pay the people.
Save that money and invest it early on. Kickstarter will give you back your investment.
Right. Mike has a question: Is it tough for an artist to get into working on board art? And I mean, for me, I would say it's not tough. It's really like, I mean, it is tough to a degree, right? Because like my style is so specific, which most of you guys who have tried to get my stuff in to the board games know it's a very distinct style, so it's hard for people to say, oh, where am I going to use this, right? So it depends on the artist, I guess, but also the second tier, I think, is a lot of companies for the artists, a lot of myself and a lot of artists feel like a lot of companies don't pay enough for the work they want you to do. And sometimes it's a little like, can I use this piece somewhere else after I create it, right? Like the work I did with Renegade, they were super cool about if I wanted to take that cover art and put it on a playmat or another print and sell it or whatever. Their contract said I could do that. Versus, I won't name other companies, but there was another company I tried to work with who was like, you can make prints and playmats of the piece and sell it, but they refused to put it in the contract for me. And then I was like, my really good friend is also my lawyer, and he was like, if they don't put it in the contract, then it's technically not legit. And if something happens down the line, they could tell you to stop, or just you have no rights to that piece anymore. So I was like, right. So, then I have to make a decision. Do I really want to work with this company, or do I, and just so I can get my name in there?
So knowing that, or knowing what's your price point, if they're saying, no, we're buying it outright and all the rights to it, is that a different price point? Then yes, and everything board game related, it's ours, and everything non-board game related, it's yours. What's that price point?
Right.
So that's a negotiation thing, which again, depending on how established the board game company is, they might not know they have the answer either, and that's also a challenge.
Well, let me put it this way. This company has the money, but I was like, that's what I said, right? I said, look, if you don't want me to have, you're telling me I have the rights, but you're not putting in the contract, which technically is like saying no. So here's my cost if you want me to work on this piece of art, because again, a lot of companies don't want to pay you enough. And as an artist, I know a lot of artists who just go game to game to game to game, and they take that quick cut, low fee just to get the work done, right? Because they enjoy it, and that's fine. And if that's what you want to do, hey man, kudos to you. I mean, if you're fast at the work and you enjoy it, then have fun with it. But I myself am not as quick, and it takes me time to make some of my stuff. So I'm like, kind of want to get paid for the work I do. And, I'm always looking at that secondary market. So like, where else can I use this piece? Because it's on a board game, but I don't own that game, right? So I can't be over here selling and making money off of it. So the secondary market for me is when I do a show, whenever they come back, and selling the prints or the playmats or a piece of whatever card art with it on it. So I don't know if that answers your question, Mike, but Mike's art is super good, and I'm pretty sure any company would hire him in a heartbeat. But if I was Mike, I would actually ask for a lot of money because he's that good. So, but I mean,
so coming from the publisher's perspective, I've worked with many different styles of artists, many different artists from different communities, and I tend to be like, here's my art budget.
Yeah.
So here's what I can pay you. I'm not going to push you for how much can I, like what can I squeeze out of you, but like within this budget, what are you willing to do?
That's actually awesome.
And that gives a little bit better of them making an informed decision of, well, I can make a cover piece and this many card pieces, or I can make, but I want to retain the rights. If I do more, I want to retain the right, like anything in there. And that way it's not me trying to pull one over on them. I'm pretty upfront. If they're like, that's not that budget is too low, I can't do it. I said that is perfectly acceptable answer. You are worth whatever your art clearly is worth it because I reached out to you.
Right.
This is a game that I think is going to make this much money, so I know that I'm budgeting with what I think is going to be investment-wise the turnaround. So I'm doing what I think is best for the board game.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm willing to work with you within that range, and if that means I'm stretching your art and not stretching it, but like putting it in the pieces in multiple places with different cropping
Right.
and everything to maximize it, because I just want your art, then I'm willing to do that. If I think it's not enough or too much, and there has been times where I've actually there's a discrepancy in artists too, though. Like I had an artist who's from Brazil and he's very talented, and I understand that maybe the cost of living discrepancy or his experience, but he's amazing, and I had to negotiate to pay him higher.
Right.
He so undersold himself, and it was like I was like, if I was a terrible person, I would have said okay, and
right,
I would have felt bad about it. But so I was like, I'm going to counter your offer with a lot more money because I can't.
I bet that made his day for sure.
And
yeah.
Also, don't ever start with that negotiating amount ever again.
Right.
Don't. Here's at least if you think that you're still new enough, here's what I think is an industry standard low point. Please do not go below this amount ever again. And he was like, okay, like he didn't know what to do with it, but that's something that can happen.
I mean, that's a lesson you learn. Like that's what I'm saying. There are a lot of artists in the industry who they just don't, they have amazing work and they don't see the value in asking for more. So they're just like, this is the amount that was given, this is the amount I'm taking. And it's like, yeah. I'm not saying, I'm the best of the best, but I always do ask, what's your budget? So at least I have an idea from there. Like, do I even want to work with you guys or not? But also, I will truthfully be like, hey, that's not enough. This is normally what I get paid for this, and there's I've talked to a couple artists in the industry who do board games I've been like, your prices are too low, please raise. I'm like, also it's like your prices are low, so like someone new coming into the industry is gonna get offered the same cost because they're like, this really well-known industry level artist is willing to work for X, so this new artist should also work for X, and technically maybe they deserve Y, because they're maybe better or just new. Like, pay artists what they're worth, man. It's not that hard. I'm saying that for all artists.
Yeah. And I think because you were saying like breaking into this industry as an artist, like that is something a lot of people want to do because it's really cool. I'm sure this is true for video games as well.
Yeah.
But being an artist in this industry looks really fun, and so I think sometimes people will kind of lowball themselves because they want to break in, and you don't need to do that. And
I mean,
Julie and I, like, it's on us and the other publishers in the industry to not allow that to happen, because there has been a bit of a history of, I would say, abuse might be strong, but at least taking advantage of artists.
Yeah, I mean,
where like we know they'll, like, if we negotiate lower, we know they'll do it because they really want to be on a board game that's really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And we just need to have higher standards, and just not allow that to happen in the industry, and just set a better example.
Yeah, I mean, there's a handful of people who are super awesome and they understand, like you just said, and that's what I like to hear, right? Because everyone should be given a chance to be part of this industry. I think it's a great industry, and then we should just weed out the bad people. But like, you know, like I said, I was one of those artists back in the day. That first gig I took, I literally was like, I just want to get myself into this industry, so I'm willing to work with this company. And you know, there was a point where they wanted me to log my hours hourly for how I was working, and I was just like, I don't think so. This is my flat fee, so pay the flat fee. Yeah, hourly. He was like, can you start doing this hourly and then keep tabs of what you're doing? And I was just like, no. And then also I was hired to do landscapes, and at some point they wanted character designs. And I was like, I don't really do a lot of character design work. I have a couple characters, but I prefer landscapes. And he kind of like twisted it to make me do the work a little bit. Like instead of just saying cool, no. And again, I was young and trying to learn, so I started doing some stuff. And then it's kind of petty of me, but my final straw was I was at a big dinner at Gen Con, and this individual was there, sitting like 2 seats away from me, and didn't realize I was at that dinner. And I was just like, wow, you didn't realize the artist that you're working with is sitting at the dinner with you? Like, I'm out. Like, it's super insulting. So, and Julie, I'll tell you about that later. I'll tell anyone who wants to hear about it in private, but I'm not going to put them on blast on the show. But that really like took its toll on me, right? And then I didn't want to do any more board game work for almost 1.5 or 2 years. Like, I was just like, F that. If anybody else in the industry is like this person, I don't want to deal with anybody. And then, you know, Renegade. And then Julie reached out to me, actually. I did that card for you for Helios?
Helios?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Julie's really easy to work with, by the way. So, and you've already heard that she's willing to pay you. So,
yeah, I really appreciated that. Like when Julie and I were negotiating the video for the Barbarians Kickstarter, Julie was upfront about her budget for the video, and I was like, cool, I'm good with that. And I'm just like, I just want people to communicate with me what they can afford, because my whole thing is I want to work with publishers that are smaller. I want to use my audience in a way that actually makes a difference for the publishers that I'm working with, right? And that's a huge reason why I got really into running Facebook ads.
I'm still no good at that. I will bother you about that later.
You're a wizard to be good at Facebook ads.
Yeah, I will bother anyone who could teach me Facebook ads, because it's the one. When I did my Kickstarter, it was the one market where I was like, I have no clue what I'm doing here, and I don't think it vetted me any Kickstarter sales. I did really well on Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah, I can super relate to that. I will say this, like if you are running Facebook ads and you do not have your pixel code set up on your website, do that immediately. That is the #1 thing. And it's going to take you a couple days to figure out, and it's going to be really boring and miserable. But if you don't have your pixel ad set up on your website, your Facebook basically is not going to track the users that are interacting with your media. And so you're just throwing money away. You're just lighting it on fire and watching it burn.
Okay. I definitely want to talk to you about that more for sure.
Yeah, no problem.
But actually, Bebo, I want to talk to you a little bit about, you know, like, so you do a lot of reviews for games and stuff like that. Have you had to, I mean, I'm sure you've had your share of bad reviews too, right?
I don't review games, actually. I
my
don't
bad.
review them at all. No, I give like opinion free unless I'm like very excited about the game and I did a how to play and I like have more to say about it. But like that's
Okay.
obviously like an opinion segment of the video that I'm making. But I got into how to plays and quick game overviews when I was working for GTS because I just wanted to like help people learn about games without pushing my opinion on them.
Okay.
And so I don't say, computer stop. Sorry, my alarm's going off.
You don't say
don't
computer
really-
stop. I was like, what?
Sorry about that.
It's all good.
Yeah. Yeah, so, you know, I don't really give my opinion so much. I've definitely given it on Twitter about games that I've seen on
Sure.
Kickstarter where I'm just like, this is not okay. But in general, I honestly, I can really objectively look at games and tell people who it's for without saying, you know, like, this is bad, because I don't actually believe that any game is bad. I just
Right.
believe that it's for somebody that's not me. And
Right.
so my opinion, in my personal perspective, is not very important to the viewer. And I don't really see why anybody reviews games in that fashion. Like, I don't need to say if something's good or bad. I just need to tell people this is how it works. And if you like X, Y, and Z, you might be interested in this, because I don't think my opinion is important to my viewers. I think that they're looking for games that interest them. That's what matters, that they find something that they love.
Yeah. I feel the same way. Like, I'm always like, you know, obviously I have my share of games I don't enjoy, but that doesn't mean somebody else doesn't really have a good time playing it. Like, I know, like, I keep bringing up King of Tokyo because it's one of those games with my friends where I'm like, I like it. I know for a fact 2 of my friends don't like it, so I'm always just like, okay, that's fine. I'm not gonna try to change your mind about it, right? I'm not gonna. It's not gonna get better for you just because I make you play it a bunch of times. It's actually gonna probably make it worse for you because now you hate me and the game. You know, like, so. Tawny said, I feel the same way about stuff. Just because I don't like it doesn't mean it's not a good thing. And yeah, there's a bunch of games like that. And also really quick on side note, I want to bring up the fact that Julie has 4,000 board games, which I did not think that number in games existed.
There's thousands of games are released every year.
I sorted that out after I talked to you on a call last time because I had to go do some research. I did a deep dive on my own because I was just like, 4,000 games, and B, I feel like you need to have your own house for that many games.
We do have a house, and it's not just so. You know, my partner works for another company and also has done board game reviews historically and still does. Not really. He does a segment on Dice Tower of games that are on Kickstarter that you might want to consider. And so we don't have very good similar interests in games. We both play the games that each other like, with one of us doing it begrudgingly, pretty much always.
I mean, that's just what happens.
So when you talk about there's a game for everyone, it's hilarious because I grew up on RPGs and Magic the Gathering, so I'm all about deck builders and Ameritrash. And he is, if it's a heavy Euro and it's just a mountain of cubes that you are moving around the board and you can math out who's going to win halfway through the game, he's in.
Oh God!
Yeah, that's, so when you say opinion, like, we genuinely can speak to the fact that the saying I love this game really offers, or I hate this game, doesn't offer a lot of value to who the target audience might be unless they intimately know your personal preference and align with it exactly. It's just, it doesn't work. So, but that being said, I have now played, and I like playing Euros because they're nothing like what I design, and they help me turn off that, because otherwise I'm analyzing the game constantly about, like, what about this was something that I could do, and how could I, co-opt it, or how would I have designed it differently, or oh my gosh, look at this rule book. Why would they write it this way and present it that, like, and I'm working still, and I'm not turning off, and I'm not enjoying the experience. Whereas with a Euro, now that I've actually played a lot more of them in the last 2 years and can occasionally beat him, very, very occasionally, but sometimes it happens, and it's very exciting when it does.
Oh yeah.
I can just be in the experience and not have my design brain on, which is nice.
I like that. I know that winning feeling. Like, I play, so some of my four of my really good friends here that I play board games with are software engineers. So they're like analytical to a like insane level that I'm not. So like when I play games like, let's take Scythe or Seven Wonders, like you make one wrong move in either of those games and you're completely hosed out of the game, right? Like you're like, go ahead, Bebo. Yes,
I will say this. Scythe is a bad game. Like, I can tell you
That game's
who's going to
broken.
win in Scythe by turn 2. It's infuriating.
I was just like, oh, I forgot to buy wood. I guess I'm going to lose the rest of this game. But I got to sit through like 40 more minutes of this garbage just to know I'm still going to lose.
So the learning curve of Euros is I knew I was starting to get better when in round 2 I was suddenly like, oh yeah, no, I'm dead. I'm toast. As opposed to just like, I don't know, maybe I'll be okay. Like, like I had this like false sense of security until the end of it. I was like, oh my gosh, why am I so
I mean, the rare times I've won, I've literally just been like, you know, part of me is happy. I'm like, oh, I actually beat them. But part of me is like, I fucking won? You know, like, and then you don't realize what you did.
If you're playing red, you're statistically
gonna lose.
Gonna win. No, you're
is it win? Okay.
Yeah. Like
it's good to know. I'm never playing that game again.
So it's not. And I've played it, and I have enjoyed it. But yes, I
really like the artwork.
Pretty predictive.
I really like the artwork.
Expansions that came out, did they try to fix that problem with any of the expansions, or did they just?
I don't know. I haven't played it.
Yeah, I haven't really played. I played it like once.
I mean, I like, you know, and then on the opposite spectrum, it's always fun when you find a game that you and your friends all like love, right? Like we tried Kingdom Death, but that game was like, it's fun, except for the fact that you die left and right. And
I love dying. I'm a millennial.
you just make a new character every time, right?
I love a game that's gonna just smear the floor with me. Which
is what Kingdom Death does. Like I had a character that somehow survived like 5 or 6 rounds, but that's because I was making very calculated moves, not going into the attack all the time, stuff like that. And then when we got bored of that, we started Gloomhaven because everyone kept saying Gloomhaven is kind of the same. It's just like a dungeon crawler, right? Bebo, you're muted, man. What are you saying?
I was just mouthing. It's not the same.
Oh, it's not. Okay. I mean, it had like the same feel of like the adventure party going and doing. You know, it took me a minute to figure out the cards because I would constantly play my cards wrong, and then I would run out of cards, and then you're exhausted.
But it also it actually emulates Euros much more closely, but with this very specific dungeon crawl skin.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm constantly getting from Folklore, which is our RPG style game, and I'm constantly getting compare this to Folklore. I'm like, they both have a theme that's fantasy based.
I think that's it, right?
And I can speak to the fact because I got to design one of the scenarios for Frosthaven. I was one of the guest designers they have. Awesome. They are not compatible because I tried to make a Folklore Gloomhaven scenario and it did not go well at all whatsoever. I had to like call up Isaac and be like, I'm in the weeds bad. I can't. He's like, take this out, take this, stop. There's too much. Mm-hmm. For Isaac to say there's too much. They're not the same. So, okay. And it had a lot of Euro elements to it.
I mean, Gloomhaven's a game that we all have been playing a lot. I mean, we haven't played it, obviously, since the pandemic. And I probably forgot how to play most of it at this point, which kind of sucks. But, yeah, that's one of those games where I was actually not that bad at it. Yeah, we've been thinking about playing on Tabletop Simulator. Or is that what you play?
No. They have a, a really good video game version of Gloomhaven.
It's amazing.
I'll definitely I'll talk to them about it later because we've been doing they've been doing a lot of Tabletop Simulator games. I think they've been playing Terraforming Mars, which is another game I'm horrible at, and I don't know if I'll get better at it. But I also convinced people to play Dungeons and Dragons with me now because I'm like, it's a video call, you don't have to do anything. But yeah, something like Gloomhaven. I wonder if they have King of Tokyo on Tabletop Simulator.
I'm sure they do.
I'm sure it's broken.
I mean, you're gonna pay for it, but you can get whatever you want on Tabletop Simulator.
Or Tabletop,
I think I only. You guys are. I mean, I can't wait to get a house so I can build out my board game stuff again. But I'm trying to think of other games that, it's very rare that you. My point was, there's very rare that you get a game where all your friends, everyone playing likes that game, and when you find that game, you like make sure that game doesn't go away because everyone's happy and everyone's playing. I don't really play a lot of games here, but with my wife's not a big gamer, but it's also time. I feel like if we had time to sit down and play for a couple hours, we probably
have a small human that
she would just knock the board over. So
probably is not of the age where you can be like, hey, entertain yourself for a while.
No, but I'm slowly building up to we're slowly building up to like Candyland and stuff, right? Or I forget what.
Cool. Yeah, some of those like early Hava games.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you're getting close to being able to do at least some of those really early ones.
I mean,
Glitter Luck Unicorn and My First Stone Age, yo.
Hold
you
on,
gotta
hold
write
on.
them down.
I'm gonna write those down.
Do it.
What was it? Glitter Luck Unicorn?
And My First Stone Age. I mean, I was...
Got it.
Oh no, I just froze.
Oh no.
I'll never know. We'll never know what she was just about to do.
You froze
What?
up. You froze right after you.
Oh, am I back?
You're back.
Yeah, you're back now, but you had like it was just the perfect time to drop out in that sentence because you're like, I feel, and then it just froze.
Gone.
Oh.
So I don't know what truth knowledge you just dropped, but we didn't.
Yeah,
get it.
whatever it was, let us know.
I don't remember. I have ADHD. I'm sorry, but it was something about I like making my daughter play games like Glitter Luck Unicorn when she was like 2 and 3 years old, and then by the time she was like 5, she was like, "I want to review Above and Below," and I was like, "You are 5."
Nice. Yeah, my kids too. Right now, we play like the basic like fishing games and stuff like that. So she seems to like have that thirst for learning, which is great. So I'm hoping to get some board games in here that she can actually play. Like, I feel like she'd be really good at Topple. Do you remember Topple? Like,
No.
I feel like she could shine in that game. Because she's got steady stacking hands. So, but I also feel like she just knock it over.
The Kickstarter game that just came out that is Jenga, but it's with little cotton fuzzballs.
What?
Fuzzies.
Oh yeah,
Fuzzies.
yeah.
Write this down.
Fuzzies. So it's because you have to pull from wherever you pull from. You have to stack it in higher than where you pulled it from. But because it's cotton balls, you're not constantly worried that your kid is going to like take their eye out.
Hey, my kid plays with the actual Jenga game. Not the way you're supposed to, obviously. She's good at stacking it, but not good at playing the game where you don't make the stack.
You want to with the actual stacking, so fuzzies, you take it, and then because they're, you can kind of twist it gently and get it to stick somewhere higher until the whole thing explodes. And I've learned that I actually
I'll definitely look into that.
Enjoy stressing people out by quickly eroding the bottom layer.
Oh, you're that player. You're the one that pulls the bottom pieces out, and then there's one left. I remember this. I played at Guthrie's with you. You're that player.
I am.
And Julie will wait till you're thoroughly in the bag, and then she'll be like, "Here, have fun with this." And then you're like, "I hate you so much right now," and you're gonna lose. Speaking of the Kickstarter stuff, there are so many board games on Kickstarter, like right now at any given time. And I don't know if you guys want to talk about this or not, but I was always curious too what your opinion are on really big level companies doing a Kickstarter. Like Hasbro now has their own model where they do like a Kickstarter style thing on their own website versus on physically on Kickstarter. But I think at one point companies like them were promoting their products only on Kickstarter, and a lot of my friends would be like, "That's not fair. They've got the money; they can make the product without kickstarting it." I guess I can give a little bit of respect to Hasbro for taking the model over to their own website, because it's not really like they're saying, "Do you guys want this made or not?"
Well,
I don't know if... Go ahead.
People use Kickstarter as a marketing engine, and most people don't realize that like, even though it doesn't, it's like, oh, but they don't need the money, but like they need the marketing.
Right.
And Kickstarter allowing you to, post an update to your previous backers about your new project is pretty major. And so it's all about audience building and marketing. It has nothing to do with whether or not they need the money. It has everything to do with building a community around an idea and finding the right people who are interested in that idea.
It's good perspective.
Yeah. I totally agree. I mean, like, Kickstarter is very much a tool, and it's a tool that can be used really well. It's a tool that can be used really poorly. And it's a tool that can be used in a lot of different ways. It can start a business or it can do marketing. So I'm hesitant to like tell people how to use this tool.
Sure.
If they want to try it for a different reason and stuff, but it's so much direct access to your community. And like when we were talking about what we wanted to do for the first project for Rose Gauntlet, like there is no better way to directly access your community than a crowdsourcing project. And we try to do everything right. Like we have all the investment up front. The Kickstarter will just essentially reimburse us for the money we've already invested in. Everything's pretty much gonna be done at that point for the most part. But like we want to really build a community, and we really want to participate in what people want. We want to hear about them, and like there's no other format that lets us talk to them directly every day.
Mm-hmm.
And that energy is pretty fun. Like I just totally agree with Bebo. Like it's a great model, and that's why
the frustration comes from new companies who are using it, who are like, this was supposed to be for, is that's what it was when it started, because it was new, and that's all there, like it was that's what people were using it for. And not acknowledging that it has been an evolution is just denying that change happens. Whether you can like it or not like it, that is fair, but you can't say, well, it was this, so it has to still be this, because that's
right.
Good or bad, that's just not reality of any kind in any scenario, not just Kickstarter. So what do you do now that it has evolved to maximize it, because it is still a useful tool even if you are new? And I think the problem is, because the whole industry has become savvier because of Kickstarter.
Yeah.
What are you doing to make sure that you're using Kickstarter as a new person, as an established company, whatever, to maximize and there's plenty of information out there to help you. So yes, when people first started, they could just jump on and be like, I don't know, let's see where this goes. Yay. Mm-hmm. And Plaid Hat, benefited from that. We benefit 100%. That's why Greenbrier Games is a game, as a company. And that's amazing. But we couldn't start now the way we started 10 years ago and have the same results at all. And so going back to the beginning, like the starting of Kickstarter, and expecting the same results now, it isn't going to happen. You have to know it's a constantly evolving. So you constantly have to learn from that and apply that knowledge.
And that's very much an overarching problem, not just on Kickstarter. I think maybe I don't think you're wrong. I agree with everything you're saying, but like the quality of just putting a board game out anywhere is so much higher than it was 5 years ago. Like we're an experienced studio. I mean, we're new, but we have a lot of experience behind our studio, like 17 years, I think, total board game industry experience. And it is intimidating, the quality that needs to happen for your first project. And it's just forever perpetuating. Like now everything has to be linen. Everything has to be linen all the time. Like it's just like so crazy how the standards have gotten out of control. And that's not just on Kickstarter. That's just all over the place.
I think so. I think if you're going direct to retail, you still can get away with not having everything be linen and everything be. But you have to know what your audience is. And the savvy of that has used to be like spaghetti at the wall, and who likes it likes it. And now you have to say, I'm making this for mass market. I'm making this for the hobby industry. I'm making this specifically for Kickstarter, but I'm also pulling out this part of it for the hobby industry after the fact. And how am I presenting that? And who am I marketing to? And how am I making, like, you have to have that knowledge before you start so that good or bad, you have the different branches of success or levels of success. Where do you go from there? And somebody new can't just go in and be like, this is cool, hope it works, and expect it to work anymore.
Right.
No, I think it's good to know who you're marketing the product to, and I think it is a good idea to use Kickstarter as a marketing tool. That's like, and what Lindsay was saying about how you should have your, whatever your expenses are gathered and ready to go. Don't expect the community to help pay for the thing, which is a lesson I learned now with
the community will help you get it to the rest of the way.
Right.
But I think as a creator, if you really believe in it, you should do at least a little of the work ahead of time.
Have a little bit of the, I wish I had kind of done that with my, I kickstarted this book, and then I should have maybe saved up a little bit, because there was like, the delays aren't because of the money, the delays are because of the pandemic. I'll just, I can't blame anything else right now, but it's literally my printer's being delayed.
You're never going to be able to plan for everything, but the more you can plan, the better off you'll be. So, as somebody who planned for everything, and not only did the pandemic happen, but our folklore entire print run was full of mold.
Oh God, that sucks.
Oh yeah, no. Let's Can I give
talk about it?
Tale of that. So our folklore, our third Kickstarter for folklore, which is the second major expansion. So we did the core game, the first major expansion, second major expansion. So we felt pretty prepared. Like, we knew the drill. We had our audience. We had we had everything planned out. And I even scheduled out the due date to December 2020. And this was March 2019, and everybody's like, that's way too long. And I was like, look, this is for any and all potential delays. I am preparing for any and all of them. So I assume it will be much sooner, but I am not lying to you because historically we always say something and then have to write something that's like, sorry, it's pushed back a month. Sorry, it's pushed back 2 months. I am saying that this is the drop dead. Every bad thing happens, it will still be to you by December 2020. Even with the pandemic, we had everything to people in August set to September. So, and I was like, see, it worked. Yay. And then people started opening their boxes, and the chipboard that was used to make all of the boxes for that print run had not been treated properly and were contaminated, which meant everything in the box was also contaminated. Jeez. So our second print of our Kickstarter is now scheduled to be shipping right now.
Oh my gosh.
Right. So, we, even with that, because we had planned and everything, we were able to not completely collapse as a company, which is great because it was a pretty massive print run. Yeah. And have everything reprinted and have everything redone. And this week literally is when I sent out boxes, because they were like, okay, everything's palletized and we've scheduled the pickups for shipping, freight shipping to all the different shipping hubs. I was like, great, I'm going to need you to go to different pallets and pull off a couple different games from each pallet and open them up and let me see the boxes.
Yeah.
And they sent those pictures. So I posted those pictures this week. I was like, look at how beautiful empty boxes look. Aren't they so pretty? I've never seen anything prettier. And everybody was like, haha. And I was like, no, really though. Never seen anything so pretty in my life.
So when something like that happens, I assume you tell your backers to just trash that box, and then your vendor has to eat the cost.
Even that was a challenge, because we had to have them tested to see if it was dangerous or not. So that if it was, whether or not they had specific instructions on how to get rid of it so that they weren't. And that was like, everyone's like, we need to know and you need to tell us. I'm like, I'm telling you to close the boxes, don't go near them, and let me test them, and then I will give you more information. And that was not
that's not fun.
But nonetheless necessary. And then once we got the testing done, we were like, nope, it's actually everything we got was that it wasn't mold, it was yeast.
Still disgusting to look at.
But at that point we're like, look, regardless, we're already reprinting everything. Mm-hmm. Like, everything's already being reprinted. It's not hold off to see whether we're reprinting. It's hold off to see if you have to throw it away in a responsible way. If you want to throw it away and assume it's black mold in the worst and figure out like what the safest way to get rid of something that way, please do so now. Nobody is going to be left hanging. We are going to replace all your stuff, but for us as a company to tell you what to do, since we are not experts, we're saying we don't have the information how to responsibly handle your nasty game that I was so proud of 5 minutes ago.
I mean, that's something to know that could happen.
Right. So I will say on this journey, the vast majority of people, communication and building your community, because I was so upfront about here's where we are at any given minute, and also I'm crying right now while I write it to you, that everybody was that most people hung in there with us.
Oh yeah, Kickstarter backers are amazing 99% of the time.
I mean, my backers have been super, like, I told them early, my goal was to get the books to them by September, but because of the pandemic, all my vendors got delayed, like, including the add-ons and stuff like that. And I basically said, okay, let me see what I can do here. And I messaged, and it's just communication, right? I'm constantly updating, constantly posting. And I messaged them all to just be like, hey, there's a delay. I'm doing my best to get it out the door. And they've all been super chill. And I did my best to try to get out the door by the end of the year. And it got delayed. And now I'm supposed to be going to print by Monday, finally. Because I got my proofs, and the proofs look like garbage. And yeah, I was like, I can't approve this. I'm like, well, they printed it. They printer used another printer to do the proofs, and they printed it using low quality paper. And I'm like, I'm supposed to get paper that looks like what I'm going to print, so it should look like what I'm going to print. Why would you use a lesser paper, which they didn't know was going to happen? So it's not 100% my printer's fault. But I told them fix it. And then the next round they printed it high res, and I looked at it and it looked amazing. Because I was like, my work is vibrant. Like, I should, like my one friend said, man, I got a pair of sunglasses waiting here to open up your book. Like, and I was like, yeah, so I looked at it and I said, these look much better. And they were really cool. They explained the process to me. And I said, this is exactly what I'm going to get. And this is exactly what my backers are going to get. And they said, yes. I was like, I will approve it. So hopefully, I said, don't screw with me, man. Like, don't send out 1,000 copies, 1,000 copies coming in, 328 backers. I'm like, don't send out 328 books and have me listen to them say that it looks like garbage, because it's not going to be cool, because that's like me letting them down, right?
And that's a communication thing that is, when you have so many moving parts, that is a challenge.
Yeah. And most of my backers, like I said, have been super nice. They've been like, man, take your time. We understand these things take time. I've waited this long for you to actually write the book and get it done. I'm fine with waiting for you to print it and get it to me. I had one person back out so far. I'm just like, cool. I had two more people wanting to back out, but after I messaged them on the side just to be like, here's what's going on, give me a second to make these updates, they were like, no worries. They're like, we thought something happened. We were just, they were super chill about it. But the one guy was just like out, and I was like, cool, man. I'm not looking to make you mad. I didn't mean to upset you. I'm doing the best I can over here. So, but I have to figure out how to refund on Kickstarter, but I'm sure it's not that difficult. But we're a little over the mark.
I'm very familiar with how to do it.
Yeah, I'll be bothering you
We've all
about
been
that.
really good at it.
What I want to talk to you guys about later is the aspects of using it to market and get the backers from this current one on the next project, because I understand that my first Kickstarter was the very, very first one I did was like limited edition prints, which or whatever, they didn't do as hot, but they definitely funded, because the funding tier was very low because they're prints. But the second one I did was a pin Kickstarter, which did, again, it funded, but I feel like if I had marketed it better, I could have done more, because pin Kickstarters tend to do pretty well. Mine, made enough to help me make the pins, which I later sold at shows and stuff, which is fine. And then the book one did great. I got it funded. I got the book made. But again, I always felt like if I had marketed it just a little bit better, because like everyone's like, oh, you're sitting on $15,000. I'm like, I'm not. I got $200 to my name. Like, I have to pay my, the two writers that help me bring the stories to life. I have to pay my editor. I have to pay the printer. And then I had $200, which I promptly spent on groceries. So, but in my head, I'm like, if I had done, so like, and I have another book that I'm working on. So I feel like maybe if I market it right, I can maybe double that number, but at least now I know what to expect. I've got a list of like things I did wrong versus things I'm doing right. you know.
Take a look at your pricing as well. Because if you walked away after fulfillment with only $200, you probably underpriced yourself on your product. So just like take a look at your margins, make sure they still make sense.
Well, I found different printers
following, which is great. But that's a lot of work for $2.
Yeah, I mean, I got the following, I got the backers. What I feel like part of it is also I didn't use an overseas vendor. I used a local vendor who does all the work for me for the last couple of years. And as much as I love them, maybe the solution is an overseas vendor. So I save, like, I get a giant cut there, right? Like, it's literally like a $6,000-$7,000.
Considering paying, what is the freight shipping? What are the VAT charges? Do you have to go through any additional paperwork? Are you hiring somebody to do that paperwork? Cost benefit analysis and anything, any changes you make is always something you have to think through. And then you're taking the time to think it through. And is that time, how big a chunk of time is that? Or are you hiring somebody else to do the thinking for you? And how much is your time worth versus to find it out for yourself versus hiring somebody else to do it are all things you need to factor in.
Yeah, because when I did the math on using the overseas vendor, so my current printer is going to like warehouse it and drop ship it, so like nothing is going to show up at my house really, which is amazing. And I got it at cost because I got a pretty cheap deal on it because it's my friend who runs the company. But when I priced it out with the overseas vendor with all the extra charges and stuff, like, I was only saving like $2 or $3 grand. So I was like, I'd rather him have that headache, like, I don't want to deal with this shit, like, I live in a 1-bedroom condo. I can't have 1,000 books showing up here, I don't know where I put them. So, but yeah, it's good to know all the ins and outs of publishing board games and books, man. There's all sorts of things that can go wrong. It's never perfect. So, we're about an hour and 20 minutes in. Probably going to wrap it up in about 10 minutes. So if there's any like amazing pieces of advice you guys want to share, or just any advice you guys want to share, like I'm sure there's no one specific thing. I guess I think this Kickstarter talk is really important because a lot of people do have this mentality of I'm just going to do a Kickstarter and make a bunch of money, and it's not that easy.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like my biggest piece of advice over the past, I don't know, close to a decade, is just perseverance is going to be your best friend. Like the three, like me and the other two women here, I guarantee you we're here because of perseverance. And how like things have not gone smoothly for us all the time. It was not like handed to us. It was not easy. But we've all like kind of carved out our own success by just not giving up. And we just kept showing up and doing it over and over again through all the bumps and, like Kickstarters that didn't make any money, all that stuff. So if there's one piece of advice I'd give to anyone who wants to break into the industry or anyone who just wants to do what they want to do for a living is just don't give up. Like it will come around. You just have to keep going.
Bebo?
And it's okay to pivot. It's totally
okay to pivot, yeah.
Like
college was useless. Totally. Don't
yeah, I'll second that.
Yeah, it was a waste of time. Don't feel bad about like what you did to get here. Just get here.
Yep.
I'm gonna do a shameless plug.
Yeah, do it. Go for it.
So since the pandemic started, I've been doing a weekly show with Rachel Blasky, and so she was the 427 Game Labs. They did the Minton game, and our show is all of like each week we pick a topic up to give advice, and from two different perspectives, from two companies, one that was doing micro games and one that's doing big box games. And whether it's Kickstarter or direct to retail or whatever, and we pick a different topic to give our perspective of what worked for us, to give advice that's targeted on every different aspect of publishing, but also to show that there's not one set solution in the industry, because that is one of the frustrating things that I find about a lot of people who, when they give advice, that everybody thinks, well, that's just what you do then. And I don't ever want anybody to feel like there is a one-size-fits-all road to success in our industry. So if I have any advice, and like the advice I've given, it has I've actually done on the show, and it's on our YouTube channel. So
Awesome.
from everything from how to make prototypes to like, and this season, we're actually having small business owners from adjacent industries come on and talk about their experience to show what.
Bye, Lindsay. Bye, Lindsay.
What translates well is just being a small business owner. So how you can apply different things from it being a small business owner if you're trying to be an artist working at, in an industry, whatever you're trying to do in a, to be an entrepreneur.
Oh, are you saying I can be on your show someday? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you could.
That sounds interesting. What's the show called? I can drop the link.
It's called You're Invited.
You're Invited. Okay.
That's a great name for a show.
Thank you.
I've only seen like one episode, but I missed you a lot that episode.
I remember I think the one that where I got really started getting into it was when we started talking about prototyping, and I went through all the different types of 3D printers there. And I dived real deep for such a short period of time. I was like, okay, ready? Buckle up. And just unloaded all this stuff. If you're going to prototype and you want your own prototype and you think that it's going to be good to have a 3D printer, what you need to know about it to be helpful as a designer or a small publisher. So we've done.
You're on
basic
YouTube, you said?
We are on YouTube, and we do a Facebook Live show as well.
Why can't I find it?
We do a Facebook Live, and then we upload them to YouTube. So they are accessible. And if not, I'll share you I don't have the link right now. I'm sorry. I was not prepared I wasn't trying to plug in.
I'll post it it's okay. When I upload this later to YouTube, I'll definitely put a link at the bottom of it.
So we've gone through as from design concept through when you signed it off to a manufacturer. Now we've changed and we're talking to industry adjacent professionals and what they have to say about their industry and advice they have that might also be helpful. And next season we will get into so how do you pick a manufacturer through how do you pick distribution to how do you talk to retailers? So that's
no, it's all good information, man. I feel like I can learn a lot from watching that.
I need
so.
to watch that how to talk to retailers thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting better at talking to my vendors, but retailers would be a
separate skill of compartmentalization.
Good to know. Good to know.
Yep.
Yeah, I need to learn to talk to retailers so I can get rid of the 700 extra books I've got. I have to take them all, guys, please.
Yeah, that's
I'll talk to Julie about it.
I have a lot of advice on a lot of different topics based on what has worked for me, but I also would say whenever you seek advice, always know that doesn't mean that that's the end all be all.
Right.
Know that. Be sure in yourself of what you know is going to work for you or not, and be realistic about it.
Yeah, exactly. What works for you might not work. I always tell people that what works for me might not work for you. Because people are always asking me for advice when I do shows and stuff. I'm like, here's the way I do things. Try it out. And I still have not figured out the online game yet, but that's just not where I shine, apparently.
Fair.
So. But I'm going to have to wrap this up soon. We're about an hour and a half in. But I appreciate you guys getting on. I know it's really early for some of you. And maybe we can do this again. I think that we had a lot of viewers, partially because Mike brought them in, but I think a lot of people actually joined in. We had a lot of questions, which is great. Maybe we can talk about whatever. We'll figure it out. But I'd definitely like to have you guys on again at some point. So,
yeah.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for being on, guys. Let me end the stream, and then if you guys hang on just a second. Thanks for watching, guys. I don't have my notebook here, so I don't know. Oh, I'll tell you what's going on next week. Today's the 6th, right?
It is.
I had to learn to take extensive notes on everything. Oh, next weekend I have Jabari on, and him and I are either going to talk about horror movies or RPGs. We're kind of back and forth trying to decide. I think he has a horror RPG, so it might be a combo of both. So.
Oh, cool.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you later.
I'm reminding you.
Computer, stop.
Medicate.
We had to get that in before I end it.